podcast. I am your host, Uta Mitchell, and today I am chatting with Mari Womack, who is the owner and winemaker at Damsel Cellars. So, welcome.
Thank you so much. I appreciate you inviting me on.
Well, I'm so glad that you were recommended to me because there's a lot of cool stuff going on your website. So, we're going to talk about all of that.
Awesome.
So why don't we just start out by you kind of telling me a little bit about yourself? Like, did you grow up in Washington? What did you go to school for? Kind of like, who are you?
Yeah, I am a native Washingtonian. I've lived here my whole life. I grew up down in Renton, and I went to the University of Washington. I stayed here locally, and I actually went to school for psychology, not winemaking. So that part came much later. But I found my love of wine really working in restaurants to
Mhm.
help make some money for school. So that's really where the food and wine pairing happened, and a lot of that really kind of fun meshing of learning about wine, learning about food and wine pairings, and just being introduced to hospitality at an early age.
Right. Yeah. And that's what your website says in your about page is that you were working for restaurants. So were you a server in a restaurant or in restaurants or how did
I was
you?
very much front of the house for sure.
Okay. Okay.
Yeah, serving, helping out bartending, that kind of thing.
Sure.
My partner of 22 years at this point, he actually owned multiple restaurants, which I helped with,
Oh,
running the
gotcha.
wine lists and things like that. So got to know some people in the industry that way. But yeah, it was sort of a part of my life for a very long time. But simultaneously with, helping in the restaurants, I also went back to school and got a degree in landscape design and horticulture. So really, I've always understood the plant side of things long before I
Mhm.
understood the wine and vinification. Um, and also, kind of the very circuitous route back to winemaking. I worked in real estate, so I've had my residential real estate license for like the last 19 years. And as everybody probably horribly remembers, the market kind of crashed a little bit back in 2008, but
Yeah.
2009 was the worst year I had on record. And we had just sold one of the last restaurants. And so I had all this time on my hands.
Mhm.
And that love of wine, that passion for wine was always sort of, kind of like niggling in the back of your mind a little bit. It was always just kind of
Mhm.
there. And so during that break, when I had a lot of weekends free, I came out and started volunteering right here in my backyard in Woodinville, and found this wonderful community of winemakers and tasting room managers and all of these people that were just really excited and passionate about wine. And so I started volunteering at Obaleska Winery when they had one wine. They just had their one Cabernet at that point.
Right.
They were not the behemoth they are now. Um, and through that experience, I just kept meeting people. Everyone out here is such a wonderful kind of connector that
Mhm.
once you start showing an interest, whether it's the production
Yeah.
side, whether it's, expanding your palate, maybe the psalm side of things. Once you start showing that interest and start talking about it, people will naturally just start putting you together with the right people in the right place.
Yeah.
And I ended up volunteering and doing a harvest with Bear Winery.
Mhm.
And that was really, really fun. Once I saw what was going on the production side of things, I just completely freaked out. Um, kind of lost my mind a little bit. And, really just, dove headfirst into this idea of having my own winery without really knowing much about how to do it or how to go about it.
Yeah.
So yeah, it was really just sort of a passion driven, opportunity driven window of time that started this whole process of Damsel. So
Wow,
yeah,
that
pretty
is
cool.
so amazing. And I always love hearing stories of women who are literally just kind of jumping into something. There's like something just burning inside, and you're like, I gotta do this. I gotta figure this out one way or another. even though it's super, super scary. And then you go and do it anyway.
Yeah, it was really opportunity and just timing and the ability to be able to say yes to those
Hmm.
opportunities. And, not having gone to school to learn, about viticulture and enology, it was really a very steep learning curve. And it was really
Hmm.
almost like an apprenticeship where, you
Right.
just learn the skills by doing.
Yeah.
Um, and it was a lot of hard work, but I didn't know what I didn't know, so I didn't know to be scared. I didn't know that it was going to take that much time and effort and energy and money, and I just didn't
Right.
know. So there wasn't anything to really fear. It was just a matter of working the problem. When things would come up, can I do
Yeah.
it? Can I say yes? And you find a way to say yes.
Oh my gosh. Yeah, that I can only imagine. And and sometimes maybe it's a good thing that you don't know.
Oh
Because the fear can certainly hold you back. I certainly have had a fair share of that myself in the past when I didn't know what was going to happen. I'd be like, yeah, let's do this. And when I did know kind of sort of what might happen, fear always kind of helped me back a little bit more. Ultimately I would go for it anyway, but there was always this fear factor that just kind of slowed me down a little bit.
yeah, it
Yeah.
is kind of funny when you think that maybe not knowing something is the better path than maybe
Right.
understanding the outcome and being worried or risk averse.
Yeah.
Um, I've been told that I don't have a lot of that fear of risk taking. That I kind of just like I jump out the plane door and I just have faith that the parachute will open. It's gonna be fine. I'm sure I packed it correctly. It's gonna
Right
be
on.
fine. But at the same time, when you don't know, what to expect, then
Hmm.
I think you can be really positive and hopeful that the outcome isn't going to be scary, that you're going to figure
Yeah.
it out. So I guess, yeah, in a sense I was lucky that way.
Yeah.
I didn't have a lot of baggage. It was
Right.
really just building skills to find the solutions to those, whatever those problems might be, or those issues that came up.
Right. So now I'm going to have to ask, did you ever go skydiving?
I haven't, no.
All right, just checking.
I don't know. It might just be fine. It might be
Who
great.
knows? Yeah, that is one of those things where I'm going, "Nuh-uh, no, not doing it.
Maybe no.
Mm-mm."
As I get
Um,
older, some of those things that I thought might be those adrenaline rushes when I was younger don't seem like such smart judgment calls anymore. Like I don't need it. I get plenty of
Right.
adrenaline. I don't need to.
Yeah, exactly.
I'm good.
So, okay, I do want to know about Damsel Cellars
Mhm.
because just the name by itself is so great, and I have to I need to know, how did you come up with that?
So I was the assistant winemaker at Darby Winery.
Mhm.
And at the time, Darby was friends. Darby English was friends with a lot of other winemakers that were really kind of the up and coming rock stars that are really leading the way a lot in Washington wine right now. This is about 10, 12 years ago. And he and all of these people called themselves the Grape Killers. It's the Chris Gorman and Mark McNeely and Chris Sparkman and Bear Winery and Tim Stevens, all these guys, and they had these really cool labels, and they were very edgy, and really, kind of daring compared to the old guard of Washington wine, very classic and beautiful. And so I thought, okay, I'm gonna hang with these guys. I'm gonna like have these edgy, dark, cool named wines. But the more that I thought about it, my partner suggested the name Damsel, and of course, like as many people who start small businesses and things, you have this long list of names for your business and all these clever, taglines and slogans and whatnot. So I had this huge long list on my phone. But the more I looked at it, the more Damsel really resonated with me,
Mhm.
and I thought the more I thought about it, it was a classic sort of thing. It had a nod to that feminine aspect.
Sure.
There's not a huge number of women winemakers, so I really wanted it to be something somewhat
Yeah.
feminine.
Yeah.
But it had that romance and sort of expression of how I feel about wine. I do think it's very feminine. I love all the descriptors that we use for wine. They seem very, very women centric, somewhat in the descriptions that we
That
use.
is so true, isn't it?
Yeah,
Yeah.
you're growing and creating this thing and bringing this thing to life. There's a very feminine aspect to wine that I really love, but the history and romance of that word damsel really doesn't mean anything other than an unmarried woman of royal birth.
Hmm.
That's literally what the old, meaning of the word is. This damsel in
Right.
distress thing came up much, much later. But I really wanted to take that back and have something that I thought was romantic and had a ritual and a feminine lean to it. And it just sort of worked. So I really didn't come up with a lot of clever names for my wines. I really just wanted it to be something strong but beautiful
Hmm.
and feminine, and really just didn't go much further than that. I guess I'm not as edgy as I thought.
Well, I love the name. I think it's pretty brilliant, and I really like this idea of it, having these roots in history, and the label pretty much telling you right there, this is woman owned, this is woman made. I love that. I think that's beautiful.
Thank you.
So, with you being up in Woodinville, the grapes do have to be from somewhere else. And so I see some pretty bold wines there on the page. I saw a Syrah, a Grenache, Mourvèdre. Uh, where are the grapes from? And do you own any of the vineyards or do you purchase the grapes? How does that all work? How do I have to envision that?
So we have relationships with family-owned vineyards through kind of down through the center of Columbia Valley,
Mm-hmm.
and our long-standing relationships with Boucher Vineyard, Discovery Vineyard, Stillwater Creek Vineyard. There's all family-owned vineyards that I've been working with for a number of years. We do
Okay.
have a really lovely collaborative relationship with the growers and the families that own those vineyards. They're beautifully managed and wonderful. And one day, estate fruit would be great. I would love to control the process from start to finish,
Mm-hmm.
but that takes a whole nother skill set and a
Yeah, sure.
lifetime of learning. I feel like for me to come in and pretend that I have the kind of knowledge that the people who have owned and farmed that land for in some cases 40 years
Yeah.
is just, well, that would just be downright arrogant. Like I don't have that knowledge. I would
Mm-hmm.
love to again, like, control the whole process and have my own fruit, but it's not in the cards right now, and I'm really lucky to get the fruit that I do.
Yeah.
We've been able to add some additional vineyards to our portfolio. We're working out at Candy Mountain now, which is one of the newest AVAs
Okay.
in
I was going to ask
Washington.
about that next.
Yeah,
Yeah.
really, really hot site right next door to Red Mountain. Very, very small. We're getting some Cabernet and some Malbec there, so some
Uh-huh.
bigger Bordeaux varietals. And then we've added some whites from McNary Vineyard, which is Horse Heaven Hills, and some from Zilla Ranch. So some Pinot Gris and some Sauvignon Blanc and Chardonnay and fun things
Mm-hmm.
to really expand our white portfolio too. So building those relationships with those growers is really, really important.
Oh,
And we go
sure.
out to the vineyards a lot. And hopefully, we can find that relationship where I'm able to sort of explain stylistically and show what I am trying to make as the final product. So then we can talk about growing practices. We can talk about the yields, what we're looking for as far as clusters and berry sizes and all that good stuff to try and work
Yeah.
together. Despite what Mother Nature might be throwing at us from vintage to vintage,
Yeah.
it's been kind of crazy here in Washington the last few years. Last year was incredibly cold. We started about 3 weeks late. This year
Yeah.
we're much more on a more traditional
Yeah. Yeah.
timeline for
Exactly.
harvest, but building those relationships with our vineyard partners is crucial. One of the growers, he's fantastic. He basically always says that a third is what the vine and the growing season, like what Mother Nature is giving you that
Mm-hmm.
year. A third is the responsibility of the grower and the choices that the grower is making in the vineyard.
Yeah.
And then a third relies on the end product of what we as winemakers do with that fruit. So
Right.
it really is a lot of teamwork,
Yeah.
and reliance on other people and their skills and their talent. And thank goodness we have amazing vineyard partners.
Yeah. It's so incredible how much work goes into it. We on the tasting room side don't see that. You walk into a winery, you're thinking of it being just beautiful and elevated, and it's just you're getting this whole experience, but nobody really truly understands what's going on the other side of that, and the amount of work that goes into it, and the amount of skill it takes, and sometimes the headaches and the anxiety and the fear of what is going to happen with the weather. I think last year that was such a big deal when we had that late frost in April, and then nobody knew. Early on I was talking to some people who were saying, yeah, we lost practically all of our Chardonnay grapes, and then it turned out to be a really great year after all, because all of a sudden we had this long warm summer. And I remember I actually went to Germany in September, so early September, and at that time in southern Germany they were already harvesting.
Ooh,
And it was, I mean, the beginning of September. I got there, I think the 6th or the 7th, and they were already harvesting. And I came back in early October and they were just starting harvest in Oregon. And it just kind of blew me away how it turned out to be a really great harvest after all.
yeah, and that's the thing. Every single year is a different test of your skill.
Yeah.
Whether it's
Yeah.
it's vineyard management, whether it's the vinification, whether it's winemakers making choices about whether we have incredibly ripe fruit, whether we picked
Yeah.
on time. Did we pick in the right window? If this fruit is not as ripe as we normally get, there's not as much sugar. Are we going to have a lower alcohol? Does that mean less new oak? Like all of these choices that you make, the variables can be really numerous, and every year you get to for the fun or stress or however you view that, um, you get to test those skills every year. And I say
Right.
90% of winemaking is problem solving.
Yeah.
It's how good can you solve that problem, how well can you make those choices to really affect the best product you can make, the best wine you can make.
Ah,
um,
man.
and it's every year is different.
Yeah.
And to your point, you really rely on a lot of people to help get you that fruit. And to say that,
Hmm.
ag workers or agriculture is unskilled labor, it is not. I dare anyone
Right.
to go out and try it
Thank you
for a
for
day,
saying that.
and you will find out exactly how hard it is and how much skill really is involved. And
Yeah.
so, I mean, to go back even further, do I want my own vineyard now? The more I talk about it, no, I'm good. I'm gonna unwind that and be like, maybe not.
Maybe not. Maybe I'm good.
Again, it maybe just a small parcel of land, a little bit,
Right.
a few
Right.
acres to play with. But no, like when we're talking about managing, more than 100 or 200 acres or something like that, it's a whole different skill set.
Oh, for sure. Yeah. Yeah. Um, So let's shift directions just a little bit, kind of going a little bit to your personal preferences when it
Hmm.
comes to wine. Are you more of a whites person, more of the reds, or do you not have a preference? Because I'm coming across more and more people who are saying, "Do I have to choose?" When personally, I'm like all about the reds, and
Yeah.
I'm starting to like more whites, but I'm still all about the reds.
Okay. I have always had a very fond spot for the Rhone varietals.
Uh huh.
I love Syrah. I love Syrah in Washington and how
Hmm.
different it can be based on where it's grown,
Sure.
in the different AVAs, the different elevations. It's really a fun grape. Um, a lot of what I like about Syrah really is on the winemaking side. I mean, I love how it tastes. It's delicious. I could drink it all
Hmm.
day if I'm stuck on an island Sure, great. Throw the Syrah at me. Um, but it's very playful. And the Rhone varietals, I think, are much more playful from a winemaking standpoint. Where if you are creative or artistic or want to experiment with wines, um, those wines I think tend to go there with you a little bit more easily. With Syrah, you can co-ferment it with Viognier. I've co-fermented
Hmm.
it with other reds too, with Grenache Mourvèdre. We've co-fermented a lot of that. You can add stems, if you want that stem extraction, whole cluster fermentation. You can do
Right.
all of these really fun things, foot stomp it, do all kinds of fun things
Yeah.
that maybe you wouldn't choose to do with Bordeaux varietals. You wouldn't want those stems in maybe with your cab. It might extract some of those bitter qualities. So, I mean, I think where I find the Bordeaux varietals a little more prescriptive, I find the Rhone varietals just incredibly fun and creative, and you can just make all kinds of different choices and
Yeah.
be a little bit freer, I think, to play. Um,
Right.
so those are really fun for me. So yeah, I like the Rhone reds. As far as the whites, I've really enjoyed making whites. It's a lot more difficult, I think, to make really expressive and good white wine, like good solid whites. I think are
Okay.
harder.
Yeah.
But that's how we've grown our program in the last couple of years. We've grown by about 50% in the last year or so, in the last vintage.
Wow. That's
And
amazing.
we expanded a lot by doing whites. And so
Sure.
for me, that's sort of my new obsession. I think just because I need to learn that
Oh,
and
sure.
become much more comfortable with that. So I've been obsessed sort of with studying and reading and techniques and like all of these fun things, doing the research. So I've been kind of immersed in the white wine sort of area for the last year or so. But we've always really made a Marsanne that I really love.
Okay.
So I think of the whites, I'm really enamored with our Marsanne right now.
Uh-huh.
We actually do little old school, little new school. So we ferment it in barrel
Mm-hmm.
and really try to encourage a lot of those aromatics and all of that building of the body of the Marsanne to kind of keep that fun and traditional. But then because we have so much like vibrant fruit and acid here in Washington, like that's sort of our fruit is sort of expressive in that particular way. We just have a really nice acidic sort of finish to the
Mm-hmm.
wines that we tank it up in stainless steel and then finish it in the stainless steel so it still has that lift, at the back of your palate. So
Yeah.
that one's really, really fun. A really nice, complex, but really fun wine to make.
Sure.
So
Oh,
yeah, I'm
that
all over the board too. I picking favorites.
right. Well, I manage a tasting room for Cougar Crest. I know they have a tasting room up in Woodinville as well,
Yeah.
but they have such a big variety of different wines. As far as the whites go, we have the Viognier and a Chardonnay and an Albarino, and then lots and lots of different reds. And to your point of the Syrah and how much fun it is to blend it, there's two wines that Debbie makes, and one of them is a 50-50 blend of Syrah and Tempranillo.
Oh,
So
yeah.
she calls it Sorillo. Um, and the other one is our Encore, and it is 50% Syrah and 50% Cabernet Sauvignon. And both of those wines are so wildly popular among our members and guests, and us in the tasting room. We really love it too. So yes, a lot of fun apparently to blend the Syrah into all kinds of really fun wines. So I love that you brought that up, and that this is something that, you know, apparently, which is something that I didn't know, that apparently people really like to do, is
Oh yeah.
to blend the Syrah with, other wines.
Syrah is a
Especially
fun component.
that's say again?
I said Syrah is really a fun component like that. Obviously,
Right.
it's a beautiful standalone wine,
Yeah, oh
but at the
sure.
same time, because of that really rich sort of mouthfeel that Syrah can have, it really fills in
Hmm.
the mid palate. So
Yeah,
if you have like those donut wines, that are like powerful up front and have a really long finish, like a lot of
right.
young Bordeaux
Yeah,
varietals do a
yeah,
little bit. A little bit of Syrah can really just round out that mid palate and make wines feel softer and feel a little bit more full and
yeah,
more mature. Um,
yeah.
So yeah, we always throw straw into our red blend just, for that exact reason. It's
Yeah.
delicious.
Yeah. Yes. So, woman in the wine industry, I always have to ask my guests this because we're all about elevating women in the industry. Have you experienced any roadblocks in the industry, or has it just been smooth sailing? I'm really curious for your experience in this department.
Among the people that I work with in the industry, I have had nothing but support, really.
That's amazing.
And I actually, I worked for Darby English at Darby Winery,
Sure.
and he said if you can't do everything I can do, you're not going to be that useful. So go learn how to drive the forklift, go rehydrate that yeast, go do those punch downs, go assemble, the crusher destemmer, go fix the press, whatever it was. There
Yeah.
wasn't anything that was really off limits or felt limited in any way.
Right.
And then after that, I just started my own thing. So I've been my
Right.
own boss for a really long time. I'm not sure if that has sort of, stepped. I've sort of sidestepped any of those issues that other people I know in the industry have had coming up, or skepticism about their qualifications or strength or skills. I have not personally encountered much of that at all, which is great. I felt nothing but supported. And I hope that I can actually bring more women into the industry through mentorship and hiring practices and things like that, where I can give people that comfortable space to hopefully increase diversity, and increase the role that women have in the industry. There's always been women in this industry. It's just
Hmm.
the visibility factor has been, I think, lower. I mean,
Yeah.
there's always been women in wine, always.
Yeah. Oh, sure. Yeah.
It's that visibility factor.
Yeah.
And I think really I get more surprise or, incredulous comments or looks more from consumers than anyone else. Weirdly, you're the winemaker, you make the wine. That
Yeah.
kind of thing, at events and things like that. It's more the consumer, it's not the industry. And
Right.
there are many, many women in the industry that I look up to. There are many men that have been wonderful allies. So
Yeah.
um, I have had a great experience. Truthfully,
That
I
is
hope that I can
fantastic.
pass that on.
Yeah. So you did mention mentorship. Are you actively mentoring women who are coming into the industry?
Yes, yeah, yeah. We
How
actually
do I
the Alliance of Women of Washington Wine.
Okay.
We actually have a formal mentorship program that I participate in. So I've been doing
Okay.
that for a couple of years, and there are also some more informal relationships with younger women in the industry that we all kind of lean on each other and have a really
Nice.
tight network, which is really great. So yeah,
Yeah. That's
mentorship is
that's
important.
yeah, absolutely. That's wonderful. Yeah, the Women in Wine Oregon chapter is doing mentorship programs like that as well. Each year, you can apply to be a mentee and then work with a mentor for a certain amount of time during that calendar year. So that's pretty cool, and I love that we're doing this for other women. So, do you have then a person that you look up to, someone you aspire to be like? And it can be a man or a woman. I'm not going to be, we're not man bashing. I've said it before. So, yeah.
We had an event recently where we were honoring some of the women in Washington wine that had come before us, and I have always admired Kay Simons. And she started making wine, at Chateau Saint Michel in the mid '70s. There were a few women there at the time, but she always struck me as someone who just had that zest, that leadership, that push, and that drive.
Hmm.
And she left, Chateau Saint Michel to do her own thing at Chinook Winery, and I've just sort of watched her career, and it's been quiet and it's been steady and
Hmm.
steadfast. And I think sometimes, you know, by just simply being present and doing an amazing job at what you do, um, is really sometimes incredibly powerful. It's not always the person who yells the loudest. It's not always the person that's standing, screaming with the megaphone on the soapbox. A lot of
Right.
times, a very steady, successful presence,
Yeah.
and just that carriage of
Yeah.
confidence
For
and,
sure.
um, and certainty and knowledge that what she's doing incredibly well.
Yeah.
Um, she's just somebody I've always watched, kind of quietly, which is really fantastic. And when I found out she was getting her fruit for her Cabernet Franc, which I love, from Boucher Vineyard, and I was also making a Cabernet Franc from Boucher Vineyard, I was very, very excited. And
Yeah.
I understand that she picks her Cabernet Franc very late. And I think for similar reasons, I was doing a little research. You really want to make sure the Cab Franc gets very ripe. You burn up
Yeah.
those pyrazine compounds. You don't get that bitter, kind
Right.
of green veggie quality.
Yeah.
All that stuff just make a really beautiful, rich red fruited, lovely wine. Um, I've still never picked later than she has. She always picks later than I do, no matter how long I wait and wait and wait.
All right. See, now I love that.
I've been waiting to like run into her at the vineyard, amongst the Cabernet Franc. But anyway, yeah, she was somebody that I really, just admire for her quiet fortitude and her strength,
Yeah.
her ability to just be there and be present all
Right.
of these years, and to start at what I assume was a time, and based on some of the stories she shared at this meeting, at this ceremony, it was much more difficult for she and her counterparts back in the 70s than it is for us today. So
Oh, for
I
sure.
appreciate all of those women
Yeah.
who went through that, who did, kind of break that glass ceiling and really start that road and that path for a lot of us that are here now.
Oh my gosh. Wouldn't it be so cool if you actually at some point did your harvest at kind of at the same time and then you meet up and you do a side by side tasting of your Cab Franc?
Walking through, sampling our Cabernet Franc, it would be great. It would be really fun.
Goals.
Goals. Goals.
Oh, I love that. Okay, well, you heard it here. If you know, let's get these women together. All right, so let's assume you had to be a winemaker somewhere else in the world and
Mhm.
couldn't do it where you are now. Where in the world would you want to be?
It's such a tough question. Really, I would love to think that I would go somewhere exotic and
Mhm.
wonderful. But truthfully, I visit Paso Robles like all the time, and I'm in love with the central coast of California.
All right, okay.
The idea, it's just so beautiful there. And currently in my current winemaking situation, I'm in the warehouse district in Woodinville, and so I make wine surrounded by like industrial complexes. It's all concrete, back alley, like
Mhm.
warehouse space. And every time I visit Paso, it's like these rolling, beautiful hills. You can be at the ocean in 20 minutes. So you
Yeah.
can literally go like paddle boarding in the morning, get back in your little truck, drive 20 minutes, and be back at your winery and like work on the wine all afternoon. And it's just such a really lovely vibe down there, and
All
it
right.
still has a very small town feel to it. I know there's like 400 wineries or something down there right now, but I really just it's right. I feel like it's right in my backyard,
Mhm.
and it just has like that ocean and sun and wine, like all of the things that I love, and it's so
Right.
close and so
Yeah.
easy, and it's right there. Again, I would love to be like, oh, I'm gonna go to Argentina or South Africa. No, I'm gonna go to the Central Coast.
Okay. Well,
Again,
you know,
I'm not very edgy. I told you I'm not.
I don't know. I don't know if you're gonna ever jump out of a plane at this
No,
point.
those days are over. No, no, not super adventurous.
Oh gosh. Well, have you traveled to any of those other regions that you just brought up?
I haven't much. I mean, I've done a little bit of touring in France and a little bit in Italy. And yes, both very lovely and wonderful. But I view those more as vacation spots, though. Every
Mhm.
time I'm on vacation, and I don't want to work when I'm there. I just want to eat
That's
beautiful
fair.
food and drink
Yeah.
wine. And I don't think I'd want to work too hard, but
Right. Hmm. Yeah, I get that. We went to Burgundy last year, and it was all about, walking, I don't know how many miles a day, and eating the good food and drinking the good wine. And we did do some winery tours, which was
Mhm.
incredible. But yeah, not that's where it's at. And I was even thinking at the time, maybe I'll, record an episode in Burgundy. Here I am in Beaune and I'm recording a podcast episode. Yeah, no,
Didn't happen.
did
I
not
think it's
happen.
sort of I view more like a retirement thing where I could be like a consulting winemaker, where
Right.
mostly I'm just like riding a
Oh.
bicycle with like a floppy hat and the big sunglasses, maybe a scarf and a baguette in my little basket. I feel like that's more like a retirement thing.
I really like your romantic descriptions of this. This is sounding very good to me.
Yeah, yeah. So cool.
I love it. I love it. That's beautiful. Well, actually, I'm gonna make it two more questions because I really want to know. Because I obviously need to try some of your wine, so I'm gonna have to place an order. Um, and of your, give me one white and one red that you think I've got to try as someone who really loves reds and who likes dry whites.
Okay. I would say of our reds right now, we have a concrete fermented Syrah
Okay.
that we do a whole cluster in about 1,000-gallon concrete tank,
Yeah.
and we call her Medusa, and she's 100% Syrah, and just has this beautiful, beautiful expression of fruit. We're getting all of the tannins from the stem inclusion, and so it
Okay.
has this very kind of bright but bitey tannin to it. It's softening considerably. We just bottled this back in January, but I think it's really going to be a beautiful, beautiful wine to try. And it does have a little bit of that minerality to it, which
Hmm.
is fun. So I think the Medusa Syrah right now is really fantastic. That one's really fun.
Okay.
And then as far as the whites, if you want like dry, crisp white, we actually just added a Sauvignon Blanc
Oh, okay.
to our lineup. It's the first year we've made it. This is new fruit that we got last year from McNary Vineyard, which is out above the McNary Dam, out in Horse Heaven Hills. And that one, it was a really fun experiment. Even though things were sort of delayed last year, we still decided to pick at about 19 and a half bricks. We were really targeting a lower alcohol wine to
Yeah,
add to the portfolio. We really wanted it to be bright and citrusy. It was
sure.
incredibly bright and citrusy, like abrasive acid when we picked it, because we did pick it so early. So we decided to put half of it, half the juice went through secondary fermentation to kind of soften those acids. And then we blended
Okay.
in a tiny bit of Semillon. And so you get this really lovely, almost tropical fruited Sauv Blanc with just almost this really like lemon, grapefruity pith kind of finish to it. So
All right.
that one is about as bright and citrusy as we're going to get.
All right.
Yeah.
Placing an order. So are you DTC only, or can you be found in any, I don't know, restaurants, stores or anything like
We
that?
do have, yeah, we do have some restaurant placements, and we do partner with PCC as one of the retail outlets that we do work with. We are not really big enough to be in large places like a Whole Foods or a Costco or
Oh,
something
sure.
like that.
Right.
We only do about 3,600 cases, so still very small.
Yeah, yeah.
But you can find our wines at any of the local PCCs, including the Sauvignon Blanc. That's been
Okay.
a big fun feature that we've done with them. We have a partnership with Duke's Restaurant too. We have a philanthropic wine called Upriver Red from Candy Mountain that we do with Duke's that
Okay.
is actually making donations to a lot of our wild salmon conservancies. So
All right.
Long Live the Kings, the Wild Fish Conservancy, and Save Our Salmon. So if you want to feel good about buying some wine that we produce, we have a partnership with Duke's.
I
And they have
love
wine
it.
at all of their places. So you can feel good about drinking a really lovely red wine. And then we also have just our regular kind of damsel lineup. Obviously, at our two tasting rooms, we do sell online, ship direct to consumer. And then we do have some fun restaurant partners in and around the Puget Sound area.
Okay. Amazing. Well, thank you so
Yeah,
much, listeners. You know what to do. I know what I'm going to do.
there you go.
All right. So, as our final thing, I always ask my guests, do you have any words of wisdom that you would like to share with women out there?
Just say yes, I think, is
Mm,
my advice. Um, Action is so much more powerful. I would just say get out there and do it. Just say
yeah.
yes and take
Just say
advantage of
yes.
all of those opportunities. Say yes.
Right on. There you go. I love that. It's very simple and it's very much like what I pictured you might say. So, um and we don't know each other at all, might I add, but I think this last half hour has kind of given me a little bit of an understanding of who you are as a person. I would very much love you to meet you in person someday, maybe when I make a trip up to Woodinville.
Yes, please come
Um,
visit.
yeah, for sure. We will, of course, have all of this information down in the show notes. As always, thank you so much for joining me here today. I know that you have a harvest coming up and that it's going to be busy for you. So glad that you managed to squeeze me in. And I hope you have a great day. And I will, chat with you soon. And with all of that, all I have left to say is, of course, Prost.
Well, thank you so much for having me.
Thank you.